Mr. Chairman, everybody is in from the waiting room.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday, January 10th. And I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order at 6:05. And before we begin, I just want to remind everyone tonight that the topic for the community house we only are discussing the rules and fees. We are not discussing anything else about it. So I just want to make sure that's clear. I'm not sure if there was some confusion on that, but we're only discussing the rules and fees. So with that, I'll open up to public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand in your video or use the raise hand function provided by Zoom. All right, go ahead, Bill.
Yes,
Okay.
hi, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to know if you guys have looked at the Manchester story regarding the select board having something called Conversation Corner. I just wanted to make sure you guys looked at it. It was in today's Gloucester Daily Times, written by Steve Hagan. So I was hoping you would look at it, because the whole thing about the Rockport Civic League Open Town Forum is just that idea, to get you guys to be less formal and relaxed with the public. So this is their idea, and it would be wonderful if you could look into it. So that's my comment tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. Sherry?
Sherry, you've been unmuted.
Okay, thank you. This is Sherry Casey, Tending Road, and I'm also here speaking on behalf of the Rockport Garden Club. We would like to advise you that we received Select Person Wilkinson's email this afternoon regarding the community house rental for Tuesdays at our regular time. We will put this before our board of directors for a vote, and then advise you in writing of the outcome. If approved, we will request the dates and times in writing. We wanted to advise you at this meeting because we did not receive the email in time to notify all of our members. So anyone that's on here that thinks that they want to speak, we wanted to let them know that there is a solution to the problem. We would also like to request an in-person meeting with Select Person Wilkinson to discuss the content of her email. There are important points that were brought up that we believe need to be addressed in person as quickly as possible. And she should have my phone number because we have talked before. But we believe that this needs to be done soon. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I saw someone raising their hand before. I think it was Steve. Yep, Steve Sheehan.
Yes, Steve Sheehan, 12 Long Beach. I also saw the article in today's Gloucester Daily Times on Manchester initiating this process. And Ann Harrison, a selectman, was quoted as saying, and I'll quote it, "Transparency and communication, it's a two-sided thing," unquote. So conversely, the Rockport Select Board's recent actions indicate that you prefer to operate in a closed environment, conducting a few one-way listening sessions only and choosing which questions and letters from Rockport residents you'll respond to and which ones you'll ignore. Rockport residents at Long Beach were recently advised that the Rockport Select Board will not be speaking with Rockport residents at Long Beach, nor will the board be responding to questions of small groups from Long Beach. Instead, the Select Board will retreat to the comfort of the executive session with attorneys present regarding any basic questions on town initiatives. This is unheard of and a waste of taxpayers' dollars. Let me give you 3 examples of straightforward questions that could be answered simply. There was a FEMA emergency grant applied for by the town. FEMA reserved the $2.6 million to this day. We asked, or not we, there was a group that asked, what is the status of this grant? It's that simple. 48 Rockport residents signed a letter asking in October. It's that simple. Who is the liaison to this grant? What's the status upgrade? The Long Beach Infrastructure Committee in 2018 gave a recommendation. There was a question asked about that as to would that be answered a status update? And then the Long Beach seawall, 48 Rockport residents signed a letter asking the town of Rockport to create and publish an emergency plan for the crumbling seawall in case of a breach at Long Beach. These are not difficult questions to answer, but no select board response has come since July initially asked and then in October. Chip Tarbell and Stephanie Herbal recently advised that the select board will go further and only communicate with 154 resident families at Long Beach. It is unimaginable to these Rockport residents at Long Beach that the 5 elected officials will actually all agree that you will single out Long Beach residents. But looking at tonight's agenda, we may be the only neighborhood not involved in a lawsuit. Maybe the plan is to continue this practice of separating or expanding the practice of neighborhoods. How about Granite Street next? Is that what you'll do? I bet Toby would really like that. Whoever heard of such nonsense from elected officials? So on behalf of Rockport residents who may possibly be next in line to receive this awful treatment and be singled out as a neighborhood, I ask each of the 5 select board members to answer yes or no. And since all of you state publicly that you practice transparency, answering a simple yes or no question shouldn't be that difficult. So here it is. Are all 5 of the select board members in agreement that it is okay to simply ignore and not respond verbally or in writing to reasonable and straightforward questions and inquiries from individual or groups of individuals of Rockport residents in non-litigating situations? And if the answer is yes, that you do agree that that's okay to do to this neighborhood and next neighborhood, please share for the record where you decided this. Because it certainly was not in public session, because it was only a few weeks ago in November that the Rockport community was promised in November, December, that the town administrator would be answering questions on the board's behalf. So which of the 5 of you would like to go first tonight? I'd like to hear some responses.
Thank you, Steve, for your comments. I'll state by saying some of the questions were straightforward at first, correct? You can go back and look at the chains of emails, like the communication that has been going on. The questions turned into paragraphs and then turned into demands kind of and threats. So with that, we're open to talking to you. We sat down with Chip and Stephanie. Well, Sarah did. I was busy. So you sent, we got one email, then all of a sudden we got another email from another member of the Long Beach, maybe another group, so I'm not sure. So I don't know who's talking up there. I don't know how many groups there are. I've heard plenty of times that one group doesn't like the other group. So we don't know who we're talking to. So we said we'd respond to all the residents of Long Beach when we have answers. We never said we're only going to. We said we'll respond to everyone at once. So that's where, you're kind of misconstruing some of the things we've said. But again, you can talk to Chip and Stephanie. You can read all the emails. So I'll turn it over to anyone else on the board if they'd like to speak. I think Chairwoman Wilkinson would like to say something.
Sure. Thanks, Ross. Steve, unfortunately, as you've done so many times over the years, you just continue to twist things. The opposite is true. I took 2 hours out of a Sunday morning and met with Chip and Stephanie. We had a really nice meeting, like always. Ross was in the kitchen cooking and popped out. They provided me with several questions. I, after the meeting, said I would work with the town administrator to get answers. They seemed simple. I then left. I forget how long later, we got an email signed by over a dozen residents with much, much more complicated questions that crossed the line from simple, what's the status of the grant, to things that involve the upcoming lease that, as we all know, expires at the end of 2023. It took me longer. I met with Ross and Mitch. We worked on some, sorry, I'm taking a minute, but I think it's important that people know this because when we're accused of things, I just want to get all the information out. And as Bill Tobin stated earlier, that sometimes we appear formal. I just want people to know like the behind the scenes and what we actually do for certain issues. So I met with Mitch and Ross, and we started to work on some answers. And Mitch said, you know, let me dig further. Let me get the dates. Let me get the status. I said, fantastic. I believe that was the beginning of the week of Thanksgiving. I had told Chip and Stephanie I would try to get the answers by Thanksgiving. On Wednesday of Thanksgiving, I got sick with COVID. I was then sick for 2 weeks. I think I missed 3 weeks worth of meetings. I told Chip and Stephanie that I was sick and that I would get back to them as I could. And then the next thing was I got an email saying how disappointed the Long Beach residents were that they didn't have information. And I wrote back to Chip and I said, this saddens me because like the one thing I pride myself on is getting people answers. And I know this board. And I also explained that once after I had his questions and we now had more complicated questions, that moving forward, a lot of it dealt with the lease and would have to be done in executive session by the whole board. And I respect the open meeting law and the board, like we have not yet met in executive session to discuss the leases, which was when a lot of those questions that you asked would be answered. And I said that when Mitch could get to the rest of the answers, he could. And that because there are so many groups and we're hearing from people who are included, aren't included, that we would respond to all Long Beach residents. So actually, Steve, I think that's the opposite of what you've accused us of doing. Instead of just replying to like one or a small group, we are trying to get information to as many residents as possible. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but I get frustrated when we like put so much effort into something and then continue to get burned and told that we're like trying to keep the public out of it.
Thank you. Any other board members want to say anything before I move on? Alrighty, thank you. Next up will be Toby.
Toby, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Two topics. I gather on the agenda you have logistics for town meeting. I assume that going over the plans with the moderator. At town meetings, we have town council sitting up front by the moderator and the town clerk. 362 or 3 days of the year, town council answers to you, but at town meetings now 3 times a year, town council is our animal, not yours. And it used to be that the moderator at the beginning of the meeting would invite all and sundry, if you have questions, to come up and consult with town council. He hasn't been doing that the past few years, but there he sits. And presumably he's decorative and adds tone to the proceedings. But if he's going to be any actual use to the residents and we're all paying for him, I think you need to give him explicit instructions that when anybody asks questions of town council, that the questions be answered. Of course, if I start in asking about advice from my great aunt Cecily's will, or the legalities of exporting uranium isotopes, I'll be brushed aside, I hope politely. But anything even vaguely tangentially relevant should be answered. Else, why is he sitting there? And I'd like a response on that. Will you, give him instructions to answer citizens' questions? The other thing relates to the one of the zoning articles. One of the ones you'll be asked to approve tonight, you're going to approve articles, relates to the coastal floodplain zone. In the zoning code, it says that all of the zones, the zoning zones are shown on the zoning map, but that is not factual. It's not the truth. All of the regular zones are shown and listed sequentially. The overlay zones are not listed, but they're shown on the map, but not the coastal floodplain zone. That's shown on the FEMA Federal Emergency Management Agency firm flood insurance rate maps. And I think there are 5 or 6 of them. And we're being asked to vote changes on the coastal floodplain. At a bare minimum, we have the right to see the maps. So I copied you on my letter to the planning board. That was yesterday. And I want you to put it to the moderator and to Jason Shaw that we have the maps up on display on the screens. We paid money for the screens and I was skeptical, but they turn out to be a wonderful thing. And let's have the use of them. Let's have the maps serially up on the screens. And the screens are fine if you have really good eyes or are toward the front of the hall. But if your eyes are failing, and many of us are old and feeble, you can't see the maps, even if they are presented on the screen. So they'd also need to be posted prominently in the lobby with the moderator's permission. Will you please pursue that with Jason Shaw and the moderator?
Yes, I'll talk to the, council about his role that he plays at town meetings, and then I'm sure Jason's here, so I'm sure he'd be willing to work with us on that matter. Next up is Laura.
Ross, if I could point out the fact that the town moderator is elected by the people of the town, or the citizens of Rockport. So Toby's certainly very capable of reaching out to the moderator, but I will mention next time I see the moderator, I'll mention that. But again, he doesn't report to us. He reports to town meeting and the citizens.
Thank you, Paul. And Laura.
Evans, 77 High Street. And I had a couple of comments about the multifamily housing item on tonight's agenda. I just wanted to voice great concern about the status of water and sewer, and that a proper study be done prior to any kind of agreeing on multifamily housing at the train station. As on the ad hoc water committee, we've been hearing from DPW since spring about the dire situation that our town is in terms of extensive use of water, and that we really need a proper study of water and sewer prior to agreeing to, any kind of big housing development at the train station. And secondly, I was thinking that there might be a more organic way to encourage multifamily housing, and that would be to stipulate that the ADUs, the accessible additional dwelling units, have 12-month leases as opposed to 6-month leases. So that would draw people into town without having to add greatly to the infrastructure, and might be a way, for us to begin to comply with the state without making a gigantic decision like, the multifamily housing units. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Just so the public knows, the last 2 comments will be Audrey and Chip, and then we do have a second public session later in the meeting.
Audrey, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. Audrey Truitt, 27 South Street. Is this the appropriate time to speak about the rules of the community house?
Yep.
Thank you. I'm going to read what I want to say. I'm very nervous. I'm not used to speaking in front of anyone. Thank you. I'd like to address the numerous groups who are no longer using the community house since restrictions have been in place beginning in 2006. In the January 2009 application from the Community Preservation Funding for the Community House Restoration and Renovations, it reads, quote, "The Board of Selectmen has recently directed the Council on Aging to move into the community house with the understanding that they would occupy the rear half of the building on both floors," end quote. At that time, the Building Study Committee published a document titled "The Rockport Community House, a Resource for the Entire Community." I quote again, "Prior to the restrictions of 2006, the building was used in 2005 for over 300 different events. In 2008, the last complete year with usage figures, 27 organizations and private parties used the building 196 different times. In spite of the restrictions to just the first floor, the building entertained literally thousands that past year. The goal is to restore this valuable resource of Rockport's past and to ensure that we continue to have a fully functional and safe building for any and all of the organizations in Rockport that wish to use it." End quote. In November 2008, Campbell Associates Architects facilitated a meeting with all organizations who were using the community house at the time. This was in part because the Council on Aging had shown that they wanted to control the building during senior center hours. The attendees came up with an agreeable plan for all the organizations. And then the town voted at town meeting in 2009. There are quite a few documents showing the Council on Aging's desire to control access to the rental space at the community house. Residents at town meeting in 2009 voted this down and instead voted to have the building open to all residents in Rockport, even during the hours of the senior center. The front room upstairs and the front room downstairs were designated as shared function room and community function space. And I ask whether or not this vote at town meeting 2009 might have been forgotten. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And last comment for this section will be Chip.
Thank you. Chip Tarbell, 24 Old County Road. Good evening and thank you for the opportunity. I do want to state that everything that Sarah said regarding the previous conversations and emails was accurate and correct. And we do appreciate both her time and Ross's time to communicate with us and talk to us about the seawall at Long Beach. I do respect, even though I may not agree with your decision to only communicate answers to all 154 residents, but that's fine. I think the most important thing is to get some answers, and I understand answers take time. However, I think one of the frustrations that come up to all the residents and the questions that I get is, why does it take so much time? We're talking about history. I think the most important piece, whether we go back historically and look at why things haven't happened, the more important piece is to look at what's going to happen and what's going to happen in the future, right? You know, what is your plan on replacing the seawall? What time frame do you expect that to happen, and how do you plan on moving forward in a discussion regarding the failing seawall? These are the important things that in 2023, we understand that in executive session, you talk about the lease and those issues and can't be talked about in public. I get that. However, a plan to replace the seawall, or what your plan is for actions regarding the seawall, I humbly disagree, don't need executive session and should be talked publicly. And we should have an understanding, as all 154 residents have an understanding on what your thoughts and plans regarding the seawall are. And that's really the question, right? I mean, we're not here to fight. We're not here to argue. We're here to help whenever possible. We're here to offer assistance if needed. But the most important thing is, you know, as your tenants, we want to protect our investments. And a number of people along the front row have, I'm going to say now, probably the majority of houses along the front row have put in major investments to their houses. And for many of them, it's their primary residence. And they're nervous. They're nervous about when's the next big storm that's going to take the wall down, right? There's no footing on that wall. In 2018, it was determined that the wall is in imminent danger of failing, right? We've been lucky so far. We're working on borrowed time. So the greatest question that the majority of the residents have is, what's your plan? And I think that there deserves to be a discussion regarding that, and that should be an open agenda item on a future selectmen's meeting. So thank you for your time, and I guess we'll wait to see where we go from here.
Thank you, Chip. I will say, I believe the executive session and discussion is kind of getting squished into one. Selectman Wiggin said that it has to be discussed amongst the board, meeting all 5 members will have to be in on that plan to discuss it. I'm sure I will allow that to be a open forum. It won't be an executive session as it might have seemed in the email. I just want to clarify that. I don't know if Selectman Wiggin would like to say anything.
Yeah, I think I said if the topics needed, if appropriate, if they needed to be executive session, but besides that, it wasn't appropriate for you, me and Mitch to just come up with the answers. The questions got too complicated for that. But I think we've determined in kind of scheduling our meetings for the winter that the first step needs to be an executive session with the board to discuss the leases. And then I would guess after that, there would be more executive sessions and some public sessions. But obviously anything we're allowed to discuss in public, we discuss in public.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm still unmuted, and I appreciate that, Sarah, and I get it, but the questions I'm having is, what are we doing about the seawall? I don't want the lease to even be involved in it, right? The lease discussion is a totally separate discussion. The seawall and the imminent failure of the seawall should be a separate direct discussion that doesn't have anything to do with the lease, right? The plan and how we're going to move forward, or how you're planning on moving forward on that, I see as 2 totally separate discussions. I don't see that they're in conjunction. Maybe I'm wrong, but the seawall itself doesn't have anything to do, shouldn't have anything to do with the leases in my mind.
All righty, thank you, Chip. All right, moving on. I believe Jason Shaw is ready to go for the planning board, multifamily, and upcoming special town meeting.
I am. Hello, Mr. Chairman. Am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay, good. Well, I know you have a big agenda and a lot of executive session stuff at the end, so I'll try to get right to the point with enough background so you can understand what I'm talking about. As you know, that the planning board and the town voters approved of a overlay zone around the train station last May of approximately 12.3 acres to have what is allowed multifamily housing to be built in that area. It doesn't have to be built, but it's zoning that would allow it to be built as of right. And this all stems from the initiative by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to increase the number of new affordable housing in the Commonwealth. And if you ever want to see what the stats are on this, all you have to do is go on the website for the Department of Community and Housing Development, and you will see that Massachusetts, among several other states, are way, way, way far behind other states in the United States in terms of providing new housing for people. It's kind of shameful. And I don't mean when you're comparing Massachusetts to Texas. Well, Texas, yeah, has more people, more land. I'm just talking about per 100,000 people in each state, Massachusetts is way behind. So the idea in this state is to encourage the construction of new housing to allow for people who can't afford the housing prices that we all know in Rockport are really astronomical and unaffordable for many people. And basically, they want by the year 2025 to have 135 new housing units in the Commonwealth. So part of this is the multifamily housing that we're talking about, which is basically a minimum of 15 housing units per acre. And Rockport has been designated by the Housing and Community Development as a what's called a commuter rail community, meaning we have a train station. And because of that, we have certain obligations as per the state as to what housing that we need to allow for, not build, not subsidize, just to change the zoning to allow for it. And according to the statistics that are online, and anybody can see them under the Housing Choice Initiative, Rockport has, as of 2020, has 4,380 housing units in the town. So according to the Community and Housing Development, we have a minimum multifamily unit capacity of 657 units. That means throughout the town, whether it's existing multifamily housing or zoning that will change to allow for multifamily housing, we have to, according to them, come up with 657 units at a minimum. The zoning, the overlay district zoning for the train station allows for up to 160 multifamily housing units. So as you can see, there's quite a bit more that we're expected to do. And this 657 multifamily housing unit minimum is 15% of the total housing units in the entire town. The minimum land area that needs to be devoted to, again, to multifamily housing in the town of Rockport is 32 acres. Where they've given us a break on this. For most communities, it's 50 acres, but because of their analysis of our buildable, developable land in the town, we're down to 32 acres for the area that can be used. And finally, that's the minimum. The developable area around the train station, according to the state, is 252 acres, and that's within the half-mile radius around the train station. They've determined that that is area that is developable for housing. So these are a lot of statistics that probably don't mean a lot, but they will mean a lot because we have a time frame in the town of Rockport to do this, to be in compliance with the state mandate. And one of those timeframes we've already met. That is, they required the town of Rockport by the end of this month, to submit what's called an action plan, where we tell the state, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it in kind of a general way. And that had to be submitted by the end of this month, January of 2023. Well, the planning board prepared an action plan actually in December. We did it, we submitted it, and it was approved. So what that does, and it really wasn't that hard actually, but I don't want to tell anybody that, but it was approved. And basically what that does is that puts the town of Rockport in compliance with the mandates from the state through December of 2024. So that's really almost 2 years, a little less than 2 years from now. But what they expect from us is that our zoning allows for these 657 multifamily units within the town, partially within the half mile of the train station, and that be accomplished by the end of December of 2024. Okay, so that's why I'm here, because if we don't do that, if we fail to rezone, doesn't mean build, just means zone, rezone. We can rezone in many different areas, and we're actually working with MAPC, the Massachusetts Area Planning Council, in developing a plan for this zoning. This is very complicated stuff. And I've talked to a number of people who are involved in this. I don't think the state realizes that the mandate that they have now on all, this is every community in the Commonwealth. Every single community is going to have to hire a consultant if they don't have one already, because it's going to require use of GIS. It's going to require sophisticated mapping. It's going to require an analysis of the zoning. We don't have that ability in the town of Rockport to do that with, the all volunteer planning board. MAPC has offered, is going to help us do that really at no charge, because they've been involved in our zoning process up to this point, which is we're very thankful to them for doing that. So we don't have to go out and hire a consultant and get a grant, but that's what's expected of us. If we don't comply with the rezoning, the multifamily zoning by the end of December 2024, we lose our opportunity to apply for 3 separate areas of grants. One, we can't get MassWorks grants from the state. Number 2, we can't get housing choice grants from the state. And number 3, we can't get money from the local capital projects fund from the state. So we lose all that. I don't know what other ramifications may come down the pike, but those are the 3 things that we will lose out on. So the reason I'm talking to you folks about this is, this is a planning board initiative. We have to go forward with this, but this is a political initiative too, because it's not just, oh, well, let's rezone and have the capacity to have 657 total multifamily housing units. And forget the sewer and water for a second. That really isn't, that the state isn't looking at that. They're looking at the zoning. Do you have the zoning for it? They don't, whether it can actually be built, that's a different story. But as long as the zoning is there, and as long as the zoning is as of right, that's what they care about. So this is in a way in your lap. We, the planning board, need direction from you as a select board. Yeah, go forward and do this. Go forward and proceed with this. Go forward and have another, town meeting in the future where we're going to have a lot more multifamily zoning on the table. We want you to do that. Or it is, we don't care about these grants. They don't matter. We don't care about whether we're in compliance anymore. Just stop what you've done where you've done it. And that's enough for us. So that's what I'm asking for. It's not, it sounds like it's far in the future, December of 2024, but you know what? It really isn't, because by the time we do this analysis, and by the time we have our public hearings, and by the time we have our town meetings, and maybe it won't pass, it's still subject to the majority vote, but you never know. This could take a while. So that's why I'm bringing it up now. It's not something that you want to kick that can down the road until the January of 2024, because then there's not going to be enough time. And that's all I have to say. Any questions?
Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yeah, thank you, Jason. No questions. I guess I want to make a couple of points. One is that irrespective of whether the town becomes ineligible for those grants, I think it's the right thing to do. And that should be the reason that we pursue these changes, not solely because we will be eligible or not eligible for these state grants. Of course, it would be great to get them, but we clearly have a housing crisis in Rockport. And I think it makes sense to continue in that direction. I will say that I want to underscore the point that you made that the 657 units of multifamily housing by right in town include existing units. So we don't have to add 657. We have to have a total of 657. And we will have a better idea of exactly how many units exist by right now once the planning board completes its housing production plan. And there's a bid
due from consultants by the end of this month, I believe, for that plan. And part of the process of that, of composing that plan will be an inventory of what housing exists in the town and the type of housing. So we will have an idea of what's out there. So I just wanted to make those 2 points.
Yeah, Denise, I agree with you. It is the right thing to do. And that's kind of what makes it a political decision, because it's like, we have to, the planning board is in favor of it. But we need, the support of your board too, to say, yeah, go forward and do this. No one can guarantee success. Obviously anybody who was at town meeting back in May of last year knew what kind of resistance, even just an overlay zone over 12 acres around the train station got. So we're talking about, fairly significant increase in that.
Well, yeah, we don't know if it's an increase. We have to see. The other point I'll make is that I agree that we need to have a formal study of our sewer and water and really get a sense of, let's be prepared in the event that we do have a developer, for example, who comes in and wants to develop around the train station. What can we accommodate? And what's our plan for moving forward in the town to be able to address wastewater treatment and water capacity? So they're parallel issues, and we should be looking at both of them together.
Yeah, but you're right. But one, to your point, the issue about the sewer capacity, and I know it's a big issue and always has been and will be, doesn't preclude what we're trying to do here. You can't tie them together. And then the other thing about multifamily housing, my knowledge of the zoning in town, and based on what is considered multifamily housing, which is 15 units per acre, Rockport doesn't have a lot of multifamily housing by right in the town right now. There is not a lot. It just isn't there. So there's going to be, some significant, it could be an overlay zone, and that's possible, but there's going to have to be, some rezoning here that, it's just going to have to happen. So that's all.
Selectman Lawyer?
Yes, both of you are speaking as individuals who have moved into town, and I speak as an individual who grew up in town. And I've said this many times, but everyone who now lives in town, those who have moved in particular, have an obligation to support multifamily housing for the benefit of those who grew up in town, who can no longer afford to live in town. Because in fact, it's those of you who have moved in, who have bought houses at higher cost levels that increases the cost of housing for everyone, and in particular, those who grew up in town. So it is an obligation. It should be a commitment of all of us to do it. And that's not just the three of us who are talking right now, but many people who are sitting in the background, whether they live on Long Beach or whether they live elsewhere in town, on the waterfront, whatever. They have an obligation to help the town survive and to create housing for those who have grown up in town and who need to stay here for the benefit of all, the tradespeople, the people who work in the restaurants. I'm admittedly, this is an old story for me, but I want to keep reminding everyone that this isn't a very big element of what we're talking about.
Just for the record, Herm, I paid $159,000 for my house.
No, I know, but that's, you get the point. That the point is that if it isn't you, it's others who have, who have been able to move into town and to pay the price. And that's not the case with many people who have grown up in town here and who again work in the trades or are fishermen or
totally agree. Yep.
Whatever.
Yeah, I don't think anybody who owns a house now is upset about the fact that their house is worth more than it was, 5 years ago. But what hasn't happened is the population of Rockport has pretty much remained stagnant for many years. There hasn't been an increase in population, and who knows why that is. It could be because there isn't enough housing, or because there isn't enough housing because there's not a demand. I mean, who knows what it is, But it's not just Herm, it's not just people who, who grew up here and may want to stay here. It's also people who may want to move here from somewhere else. I mean, that's what makes a community dynamic. It's not
And I
that
agree.
people, it's not, like there are places where I was in upstate New York where, the housing was totally depressed. No one moved in, people moved out.
Right.
And you could buy houses for, 25 grand, you could buy a house, but nobody wanted to live there. We're just in a community where, people want to live, but you're right. I mean, I think we're all saying the same tune here. We need to have more housing that's affordable in
For young
Rock.
people.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at the public schools and the enrollment that is how it's dropped, and Rockport's a destination too, geographically. People may not want to move here because it's so far from Boston, but it's also very, very desirable. And wealthy people are buying the houses, making these houses, year-round houses into summer homes and so forth. So this is a trend that's been happening a number of years.
so, okay, get back to the initial request here is, what are you folks thinking about us going forward with this? Or do you want to give it a little more thought?
I think we'll put it on as a more discussion action item on a later date.
When you say go forward, remind me of what you mean by saying go
No,
forward.
what I mean, Herm, is that how does I'm trying to take the temperature of your board. With this rezoning, this process that we now have to continue, which is to, engage in potentially more rezoning of areas in the town that are not zoned for multifamily housing. Is that something that you want to see happen? That's what I'm asking.
Well, if you're asking me personally, the answer is yes.
Yeah, well,
Because
I'm
of the
asking
need-
you and-
because of the need that we've already spoken about.
Yeah, okay, well, that's good.
I would concur with Selectman Lilly.
As do I.
Yep. I mean, I don't want to lose the access to apply for those grants, so.
All right, well, that was my purpose in coming to you tonight, and I appreciate your, kind of quick decision-making on this, and that's good to know, and, we'll move forward with it. And we'll keep you going, we'll keep you advised as to what we're doing, and we'll see what happens, at the special town meeting, on January 18th, to see what, how people are taking that, because there are some provisions in the law there that make allowance for more housing than is under the existing zoning. We'll see what happens. So,
Selectwoman Wilkinson?
Yeah, I agree as well. Thanks, Jason. I do think that we all collectively need to put a renewed effort into educating the residents that changes in zoning don't equal developments being built. Because since the last town meeting, I've heard from, several people, and given they are people who aren't typically at town meeting, may not read all the articles in the paper, but they're still residents and have just as much of a voice of, oh, I heard, the town has by eminent domain taken over the whole area around the train station, and you're putting up, skyscraper, what I mean? That, and I think we need to do a better job of maybe it's a brochure, maybe it's a blog, a website or something that just says really simply, this is what rezoning means. You know what I mean? That it's kind of creating opportunity, but we're trying to be in control of our future, and and trying to design things that will fit. And by people coming to the special town meeting, they can have a say in that, so I want us kind of, as we move forward, to be careful and make sure that we're educating the people that aren't as involved as those of us here.
well taken.
Alrighty. Any other questions for Jason? All right. Sounds
Mr.
good.
Chair,
Yep.
since Chairman Shaw is here, did you perhaps want the board to consider item 3 on the action items list, the stances on the town meeting warrant articles, while he's here?
Yeah, we can do that. So if anyone has any questions, we can ask him. So if you do want to bring him up.
Sure. So the zoning articles, D through R, are probably 60 pages worth of items. Chairman Shaw provided for the voters booklet a final report letter to go with that. And Jason, if it's all right with you, I'll bring that up.
Sure.
That gives, I would say, the best synopsis of where things are. And then if it's all right, Mr. Chair, I'll go back on Articles A and B after that.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to share the screen. And Jason, perhaps you could give a quick overview on that.
Yeah, I don't, I will. Let me, yeah, I'm trying to see, can we scroll down a little bit? Yeah. Yeah, they're real quick, a bunch of these articles, I'll read them off, Mitch, and maybe you can scroll down. Like Article D, Article E, I won't even talk about them, that they're not substantive. They're just, a lot of this stuff is organizational, you know, eliminating certain language or making things capital that were lowercase. And Article D and Article E fit that point. Article F is updating the definitions. There are some really old definitions in the zoning bylaw, like, you know, boarding house and cottage colonies. I mean, no one uses those words anymore. No one would know what they mean. And we've added some too, like hazardous waste, hazardous substances, hazardous materials. We've redefined what was the definition of gross floor area, which is used to calculate the size of a building for zoning purposes. It was always a problem, always a question, and we've redone that, and we now have a diagram drawn by one of the architects on our board, and it's pretty darn good, and it really illustrates what's included in gross floor area and what isn't. So that's part of the definitions. Article G, again, non-conforming buildings and uses. There are no substantive changes in that. Article H, minor changes to the various zoning districts, no substantive changes in that. The Article I, this is a change that would allow new townhomes and multiple dwelling units with a maximum of 4 units in the R zoning district by special permit only. And that is a change. It would potentially increase the number of units in a particular building. But it's, you know, again, it's one of those things that we're trying to, you know, maybe provide for the ability, not required, but the ability to have housing for more people in the town. Article J, and that is just an elimination of a lot of provisions that really have no place in the zoning code. They're really building code provisions, like, you know, where your bathroom should be located and how many square feet should be allowed above the first floor. This is not a zoning issue. The other thing that's in Article J, again, which is potentially a subject of discussion at the meeting, is the single family homes in the R district have 10,000 square feet. They must have a lot size. And so what we've proposed is an amendment that allows for a 2-family dwelling, but it must have at least 10,000 square feet, same size, same lot size, and it must meet all setbacks for a single family home. So in other words, the size of the house, the setbacks, all that, the size of the lot, all stay the same. It just allows for a 2-family instead of just a 1-family. So if we can go down to Article K, Article K is reorganizing the existing parking requirements basically, to sum up Article K, it allows for less paving over, fewer parking spots, shared parking between daytime and nighttime use. You might have a commercial use in the daytime, but residential use at night. So you don't have to have as many parking spots. I've heard like a rumor out there that some people who are against the rezoning down in around the train station say, oh, this is just tied to the train station parking. No, it's not. This is just a reconfiguring of the parking throughout the town, no matter where it is, for any commercial or residential use. It allows for more flexible use of parking spaces. So we don't have like, a parking lot with 50% of the parking spots being unoccupied, because that's what the zoning kind of required at a mechanical means, but practically speaking, they're never being used. So that's Article K. Article L, we changed definition for trailer, limited the time they can be on a property for a period of up to 30 days. We eliminated the obsolete provisions relating to microwave antenna. I don't know who has one of those anymore, but if they do, they probably still have a rotary phone. Those aren't a technology that's being used anymore. And a couple of other things like shared septic systems are allowed. This is because in the open space residential development section, you can have shared septic systems. There's nothing wrong with that. And again, it cuts down on the number of septic systems you have to have. Article M, this is a rewrite of the Water Supply Protection Overlay District. This was probably one of the most impenetrable sections of the zoning code. No one, at least I couldn't, and I read it over quite a few times, could understand it, what it meant. And even the ZBA, which had occasion to have to interpret this once, said we couldn't understand it. So it's been rewritten, simplified, and actually one of the main persons who was helping in rewriting it was the guy who was involved in writing the first one, Eric Hutchins, and he admitted that, gee, you know what, this could be rewritten. So what we do is we basically cut down on the number of zones, increase the protection that's given for the Water Supply Overlay Protection District. And what's really good is that the Mass DEP has read our regulations, our proposed regulations, and say, yeah, you have it right, you're in compliance, we give this our blessing. And so that's on the agenda also. We can go down to Article N now. The next one after that is Coastal Floodplain District bylaw that was alluded to by Toby earlier on in the meeting. We're not talking about reconfiguring any of the boundaries of the coastal zone. In fact, those boundaries, there is a map. It's on the GIS, which actually shows the floodplain designated area, and that's a map that we will have at the at the town meeting. This bylaw basically stops the ability to build houses, to infill with houses in an area that's a coastal floodplain zone. Considering the increased chance of flooding, the rising sea levels, it's something that it was allowed with a special permit from the ZBA. It's not allowed at all anymore. And actually the ZBA is in favor of it. I met with Alan Battistelli and Peter a couple of days ago, and they said, yeah, this is good. We don't want to have to deal with this anymore. So that's now out of that article. Article O, no substantive changes. Article P, that's just the town of landfill. The town doesn't operate landfills anymore, so they don't have to worry about filling. Article Q, simple modifications of the site plan review bylaw, just a couple of tweaks on that, nothing controversial whatsoever. And then finally, I think we go to 14, we go to 15 is enforcement. This is zoning enforcement by the building inspector. This is really important to the building inspector, who feels like his hands are tied. And what this does, it provides for a mechanism for a citizen, or not a citizen, anybody, to make a complaint about zoning to him. He's got to address it within 14 days. He has to investigate it and address the complaint. And then if the complaint is valid, the person who is in violation of the zoning gets a notice from the building inspector and has a time frame within which to remedy the zoning violation. If they don't remedy it, now they can have under this law, they can have civil penalties. It used to be they had to be prosecuted criminally, which was really crazy to think about, having the DA prosecute someone for a zoning violation. This is a civil penalty provision, which allows up to $300 a day for a zoning violation as long as it continues. And that's pretty much it. That's what we're doing. We've broken it up into 15 different paragraphs simply because, before it was in one bylaw. When we did it in May, it was way too much, I think, for the public to digest. This way, it's 15 different paragraphs. Hopefully all of them will pass by the 2/3, but if they don't all pass, then at least the ones that do pass will be separated from the other ones. And that's pretty much it.
All right, any questions before we move to a motion from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion for, what was it, D through
R?
Yes, I believe I have that motion. I have A through R.
So
Yeah, A and B and C are not us.
do you want to do A and B now, Mr. Chair, or do you want to wait on those?
If you guys want to go over them real quick.
Sure.
I mean, if it's too lengthy, but.
A is prior year bills. We have 3 prior year bills, one for $675 for ads that were billed late for open positions. So coming from human resources operating expense, and then 2 from contracted services for ambulance, one for $40.92 and one for $1,984.60. Both bills from previous fiscal years, one relating to AED maintenance and one for another vendor service. So those are Article A. And Article B are standard transfers article that we have at all the meetings. 3, as of now, 3 transfers. If there are more, we will bring them to you at your pre-meeting. But as of right now, there are 3. $9,400 from Board of Selectmen office manager salary to library less than 20-hour wages line. $5,980 from office manager salary to town clerk communications and equipment rental to cover the cost of the next 2 town meetings for the audio vendor. And then $15,000 from Board of Health agent salary to Board of Health purchase of services. We're still searching for a public health director. So we have a consultant who's been carrying that load, and we need to make this adjustment to accommodate paying his bills. So and there's currently no motion planned for Article C.
Alrighty.
Would you like a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yep, I'll take it.
I move that the Board of Selectmen support Articles A, B, D through R on the January 18th, 2023 special town meeting warrant.
Second.
And any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Selectman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, folks. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mitch, for that. And now we are moving on to the consent agenda, which is approval of minutes, if any. Consider acceptance of donation from Old Garden Beach Association for stair replacement project. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move that the board approve all non-held items on the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. And now we're moving on to the consider award of DPW facility general contract bid, and I believe I saw Bruce here earlier.
Mr. Chair, Bruce Reed is here, Chairman of the Building Committee, as are a number of members of that committee.
Alrighty, how are we doing, Bruce?
Doing great today. Just a few comments by me. I mean, we know this has been a struggle to get this building to happen, or to happen to where we are today, which is finally having a set of bids in that came in under the amount of money that the town has allotted for the building. And it's been a struggle. For me, it goes back to 2016 when we took our first shot at this and didn't get it. And then none of us, when we started this project, a couple of years ago, thought we would be going through three bids. But the good news is we have a contractor that has come in under and I'm going to describe it as the base bid. So the base bid is, the way I look at it, it is for the building that we wanted even back in 2016. This is the operational part of the DPW, and it does what we needed to do to run a DPW operation out of it. What we don't have in this bid in front of you is for the administration wing of the DPW. If you recall, we were trying to put all of the folks up at that building so that we had our DPW people all in the same building. We don't have the money to build that. It's just too tight. So what we did is we said, well, okay, we'll build the base building, if you will, which covers our support of our guys. So we're there. And what we need now is for you to approve that. And along the way, I want to say thank you for all your support that you've given us, even when we had to come back and look for additional money. And we're finally there. The committee's been great. We've worked hard at this. We've had some of your members come and go through the years. We had Ruth leave. We had Ruth come back. It's been great. We had Dawn there. Dawn left. Now we have Ross is on the meeting, and a former selectman was also part of this committee, Dan Apparel. So we've worked hard, and there's a lot more work to do. We have to be diligent as we build this out. We're going to have to be, it's tight financially, so we're going to have to really manage this project. So that's what I have to say.
Alrighty. Anyone have any questions for Bruce? Selectman Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Bruce, and the committee for all your hard work. I am excited to see this to become a reality. I wish it had passed the first time, because it'd been a lot cheaper to do it, but that's the way, the people spoke. It took a while. We had to come back for money. So this has not been an easy situation. So thank you for all your due diligence, all of you, to get this through, and looking forward to being part of watching this project come to be. Bruce has been on not only the building committee for the DPW, but also the school department. So just to thank you for all your service for the town, decades of service. So thank you, Bruce.
It's 2+ decades. I haven't got the 30 years yet.
Well, you're not going anywhere, so
I'm closing in.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce.
And anyone else from the board? I don't know if I know Ruth's here, and Monica, if they want to say anything, they can. Just raise your hand, Monica. Ruth. No, Monica's saying no. Ruth, you want to say any words? You can unmute, Ruth, please.
Just that it's been a long time coming, and it's exciting to finally get a low bid and start the process. We're gung ho, so hope you love it and we'll get going.
All right, I'll take a motion before the prices rise any further.
Yeah.
I move that the board award the general contractor base bid for the new DPW facility to BC Construction Company, Inc., subject to the completion of all legally required obligations.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And roll call vote, Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. All right,
Thank you all. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yes, thank you, Bruce.
All right, next on the agenda is to consider potential adjustments to the community house regulations and fees. And I know me and Mitch and Sarah went over a few of them earlier today, so I'm sure Mitch will bring that up in the board, so the rest of the board can see what we were talking about.
Sure, it is in the board's packet. Items for consideration that the three of us have taken a look at. Do you want me to share the screen, Russ?
Yep.
Okay.
Can I ask,
Yep, go ahead.
do you want to just explain or I can just that this is kind of post-COVID now that the community house is opening up again?
Yep.
Sure. We are getting use. It is getting use. Contrary to popular belief, it is getting use by varying groups for different matters. It has been a number of years since these regulations and fees had any actual close look at them. There is a revolving account in the town bylaws that is set up for the community house, particularly related to building maintenance. Fees that are collected from these go into that. Currently, right now, there's less than $3,000 in that account. And since these fees were originally set, again, it's at least 8 years on these from what we can find. So it's necessary just where we are in life and the cost of things to take a closer look at them. So some additional context on where some of the suggested fees that we've come up with are. And then Sarah, do you want to speak on some of the other items?
Yeah, sure. We can in a second when you share your screen, but just a little bit more of context. So when the community house was renovated, when was it? 2008? No, yes. Yes. After the renovation, when we started to rent it out to town committees, community groups, for private functions, we had one specific goal was to, obviously we have to cover the costs of the town carrying the building and the maintenance costs, managing the costs. But we also have been very, very cognizant of the fact that town and CPC funds were used to renovate the building. So the last thing we want to do is kind of double dip from people. So sometimes people see over the years, people have seen the fees and they're like, that's nothing. And the point is that we've all paid into renovating the building. And so the goal is for it to be, inexpensive enough that people are getting a real community benefit from it, but that the cost at least takes a little bit of a bite out of the actual costs of running the building. And I will tell you, I think even with our proposed changes, it is still a major, major bargain. I'm on several mom group websites, and when people are looking for where to have functions, the Rockport Community House pops up, because people are often in other towns like, who knows someone in Rockport who can rent the community house for us? So I think that we've done a great job the last several years, and it's time now just for a small bump, but to help, take a chunk of the cost.
Selectman Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd also like to mention that if you looked at other venues across Cape Ann and you compare and contrast the price, when you look at these increases that we are proposing, it is not significant, but it's something to be. Everything has gone up, as everyone is well aware, and we need to rise with the times. But we're not gouging the residents of Rockport, but we have to be consistent. So when the prices come up, I'm sure we'll be talking further about it.
Yeah, and then Mitch, I can touch on the other, after we go over the prices, I can touch on the other proposed changes.
You're not pressing your button, Mitch, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you see the document now?
Yep.
Yes.
So the fees are the first item listed here again, as discussed. It's been quite a while since these have been adjusted. The current column in the center, and then the suggested column that the three of us are presenting to you is on the right-hand side. Modest increases for all of them. The probably biggest adjustment is separating out school student groups from community organizations and suggesting a charge for community organizations. $50, which is what Rockport residents have been paying for use of that since we've started rentals from what we can find. Moving down, residents, modest increase to $75 from $50. Out of town nonprofit, $100 to $150. For-profit and private functions, $200 to $300. Kitchen rental, which has always been separate, $50 to $75. Projector rental, which has been very minimal, but quite frankly, we've got to end up probably purchasing one that will need to stay there. Those aren't used very often anymore. $25 to $35. And then the key deposit, $10 to $20. Very often, folks will take several days to bring the keys back, and that poses a challenge for us. So we have some additional commentary on that as we get a little farther down. Sarah, do you want to take the next items?
Sure. So the rest are basically items to policies. In section 1, we would limit use, weekly use by the same group to no more than 2 times per week. And I think that's something that if there were to be an exception, it would have to be by the Board of Selectmen. And the goal of this is because we really want to maximize the number of groups and members of the community that have access to the community house. And I think in the past, looking at certain periods of time, there have been fewer unique groups that are using the community house like multiple times per week. And so I think we'd rather see lots of people be able to use it. In section 1, no group or individual may store any items at the community house. And then that's basically because we've had safety issues in the recent past with items that have been stored there. Third is no admission of any kind may be charged without a vote of the Board of Selectmen. And that, Ross, did you want to touch on that one?
Which one were you at?
No admission of any kind.
Oh, yeah. So I just thought it was inappropriate for, the community house to have an organization charge other people. At this time, they were getting free admission. So, and then they were charging it, and they were getting free. They weren't getting charged to use it, and then they were charging admission for people to come in. So I just thought that was kind of inappropriate for us to be allowing that.
Yeah, and then we left without a vote of the Board of Selectmen because we understand obviously there are situations where like Rockport New Year's Eve, where an admissions fee is charged, and that's appropriate, but so we left an exclusion for that. Fourth is if a key is issued, it must be returned no later than 10 a.m. the next business day, or the key deposit is forfeited. Funny aside on this one, the community house is still using, old-fashioned metal keys. And, if we have them floating out there in the community, it poses a security and safety risk. Several years ago, I hosted a selectman event at the community house, and the police had me on record as the last user. And at 2 a.m, an officer was doing his safety checks of the door, and it was open, and he called me at 2 a.m. to see if I had the key, which was very responsible. But so that's the reason for that. And then in section 15, we previously had a list of preferred caterers, and at this point, any licensed caterer is able to use the kitchen. We've just a separate note. I see we propose that the kitchen charge go from 50 to 75. Typically, if people are having small family birthday parties, they don't use the kitchen. The kitchen fee is basically for, you know, if someone has a wedding or a rehearsal dinner and the caterer is using the kitchen. So we've determined that we don't need to provide a list. Typically licensed caterers are fine. I think that's it, right, at this point?
All right.
And then I think we've discussed that since, you know, we've just started, you know, getting it going again, there have been events, but I was thinking that it makes sense to kind of let, you know, the new fees and policies go for 6 months and then have the board review again and we can make any adjustments.
Yep. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, these are all modest increases. No question about that. But can we talk about the Rockport community organizations? That's the only thing that's increased from $0 to $50, and the thinking behind that.
As you heard from some history from earliest public comments, there's a lot of organizations that use it. So, you know, after they use it, it requires our janitors and other maintenance to be taken care of. So that's why the fee was suggested.
The cost is still the same to the town as it is if a resident is using it or a community organization is using it.
Right. So that makes sense. Total sense. I just wanted to make sure we put that out there.
Yeah, the other thinking was that since the beginning, Rockport residents have been paying $50, you know, to have a family event. It's still Rockport residents and it's very, very minimal. But frankly, like, you know, unless we are able to chip in towards the upkeep of the building, which, as we all know, we put over $2 million into, and it needs more upkeep. I mean, the selectmen hosted a party there a few weeks ago, and I made a small list for the DPW of things that you know that need to be worked on. So, you know, $50 seemed very minimal, but also would actually add up in terms of how many events there are for community organizations.
Upkeep.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, seeing none. Thank you, Mitch. I'll take a motion on that if anyone wants to make a motion.
Do I have that?
I think it's Sarah.
Oh, is it me? Sorry, hold on. Great. I move that the board approve the changes to the regulations and fees for the community house effective January 13th, 2023, and that any previous fees, regulations, and arrangements are hereby rescinded. But hold on, Mitch, does that get rid of the regulations that we're not changing?
No, just items that
Oh, the changes. Got it.
changes.
Okay. So then the motion's fine.
Do I have a second? All right, roll call. Any other further questions or discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson.
Aye.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Selectman Lillier.
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
And Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you for that. Those are the new regulations. If anyone sees any ink on my face, I just had a pen blow up on me, so just if anyone sees that. So I just want to say that. Next on the agenda will be consider requirements.
I don't
and
need to laugh,
timelines.
but that was pretty good.
Requirements and timeline of Board of Fire Engineer vacancy.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I have a document to screen share for you.
Alrighty.
Okay, so the requirements portion and qualifications portion is what the board has used the last 2 times it has filled vacancies on the Board of Fire Engineers. A couple of items particularly for you to consider. The timeline that's listed here. The intention is if you approve this evening, I'll issue notice tomorrow on it. The applications would be, deadline would be the 18th at noon. And board interview and potential appointment at your next meeting on the 24th. The other item that does require your attention this evening, we've had 2 vacancies and you've done it different each time. The board does need to make a determination if you wish to allow former members of the department to apply for a position on the Board of Fire Engineers, or if you wish to keep it internal only.
All right, anyone from the board want to speak on their mind? Selectman Lawyer?
I would ask of the other members, why former members should not be considered. I guess that would be my only question.
For me, it'd be because they left the department, so to speak. They retired for their own reasons. And then I don't know if some of them may have been absent for X amount of months, and then we put them in a position of leadership. That would be my reasoning why I wouldn't want former members.
Only because if they represent experience that would be appropriate to have, then we should consider that experience more than we should consider the fact that they resigned for one reason or another and now would like to come back.
Can I ask a question? Is it two separate decisions we're making? Is the first being to include former and then the second internal or internal and external, or no?
No, so former is your internal, external. So you basically, you want just current members, or you want to allow others to apply? So former members is what you did last time. External was former members.
Okay, but not
So-
external, meeting people from other.
General public, no.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's only.
Former was external.
Okay, got it. Okay, I was confused. And we did do it we did include former members last time?
You did it for one vacancy, but not for the other. I want to say you did it for the first vacancy that came up, but not for the second one.
Okay. Do you remember why, Mitch? I just don't remember.
I don't.
Okay.
Any other discussion, or we're gonna need a general consensus on this?
Paul, does Paul remember?
I think it was just to get a larger breadth of candidates. If I remember correct, I'm not 100% sure, but
I don't remember the reason why, but I will say that I know that there was a former member that did apply, and then they rescinded their application after speaking with some people from the department.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So
I mean,
I guess
I'm
I'm
for
still-
current. Selectman Lawyer?
Yes, I guess I'm still of the belief that it's the experience that we need to capture or retain. And if capturing it means allowing somebody to come back in who for all intents and purposes was a fine upstanding fireman and left for their own reasons, then we should give consideration to that as a possibility.
Any other members?
So if we were to allow former members, it'd be qualified former members that
Yeah.
had served in the.
They have to reach the same qualifications as.
Yeah, but they had served on the Rockport Fire Department prior to.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So I guess that means that having a minimum of 3 years of experience as a fire lieutenant or captain, if we do former, could be at any time in the past. I mean, wouldn't we want somebody who has recent experience as opposed to at any time in the past?
I also, not so much experience, but shown leadership too, backing out. I don't feel shows leadership that we need right now in the department, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, we could determine that though we're gonna interview.
Yeah.
Applicants, right?
I mean, the personal circumstances under which people do things is in fact their experience and not wholly known to us.
Mhm.
So
I mean, I'll gladly take to me, it's not a big deal because they all are gonna come in front of us in the end.
Right.
I believe if we allow former members, it only opens it up to a handful of potential members anyways.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, there can't be many who have these qualifications, so I think I.
And again, those candidates that may apply for they obviously have to be under the retirement age of 65. So
yep,
it's going to be
Everybody would need to meet all state requirements associated with serving as a firefighter.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
I'm fine with that.
So
I am too.
we'll do
I'm fine. Yep.
internal, former members.
Yes, as long
Yep.
as they're internal, formal.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay, so current or former members. Okay.
all
yeah.
right.
And any concerns or issues with the timeline that's proposed?
Nope, potential appointment, with a active date of the 30th, correct? Or is it 31st?
February 1st would be
February
start
1st?
date.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, the individual who is reached retirement age, his last day is January 31st.
Yeah. No, this makes sense. And I think it looks to me like we have a lot of members of the fire department on the meeting tonight. So my guess is that word will travel quickly.
Mhm. Alrighty.
When do we anticipate interviewing these candidates?
Next meeting.
Paul, you just said that.
Oh, I didn't hear it. I'm sorry, you cut out.
Yeah, next meeting.
Next Tuesday.
No,
No,
weeks.
2 Tuesday,
Oh,
2 weeks.
Okay.
I don't know where you're gonna be next Tuesday, but not here.
Maybe here.
Maybe here. Who knows?
All right, that's all you needed, Mitch, right? Just the consensus, you're all set
That's
there?
it, Mr. Chair. So we will proceed tomorrow with issuing this on the board's behalf and carry out as we have done the last 2 times.
Yep, and I saw a few people raise their hands. There will be a public comment section in a few minutes if they wish to say anything. And you can continue on, Mitch, to Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator updates.
Sure, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Don't we need to take a vote?
No, they're just a consensus for the
Okay.
application.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, we are in the process of working through preparing for operating and capital. As the board is aware, the bylaw changes were passed and approved by the Attorney General's office. They've taken effect, so the board's budget, instead of being due January 30th, is now due February 15th for transmittal to the Finance Committee. So we are in the process of going through and doing our annual deep dive internally with departments. Met with some departments today, met with some in the last week, and we'll meet with a few more next week relating to their requests. Many of the requests that we're looking at and that we're seeing relate specifically to significant increases in utility costs. We're seeing that in every department that has to pay utilities, aside from other requests that may come in. So we're in the process of evaluating that and comparing that to what we anticipate our revenue will be. We hope that, as has been the case for the last 8 years, we will hear at least a first pass at the MMA meeting next week on what we anticipate state aid to be. The last 8 years, the initial Governor 1 budget announcements came out at that meeting, which gave us some helpful time to start to plan and make any necessary adjustments. At this time, we have those as level funded, but it will be very helpful to know where unrestricted general government aid, Chapter 70 and Chapter 90 monies, among others, will land. So we are anxiously awaiting that at this time. Capital, same thing. We are awaiting the free cash certification and are working our way through. One of the things that I anticipate will factor into our capital requests this year are, the approval of the DPW facility and the ability to proceed. We're going to be cognizant of overloading DPW in this next year with too many projects that are not required, so that focus can be where it needs to be on the facility. We expect that portions of much of management's time for DPW will be attending to the construction of that facility. So we will be cognizant in what we're adding to DPW's plate this time around. And that covers finances for the moment. Timeline for town administrative evaluation. So it is time for my annual evaluation by the board. I am proposing to you that you receive my self-evaluation by January 14th, that your individual selectmen evals be submitted to the Human Resources Director by the 21st, and that the board review and consideration of that be at your January 24th meeting. Special town meeting. As you're aware, we're preparing for next Wednesday. We are in the gym, 5:30 start for that meeting. We are as ready as we can be. We're in the process now of finalizing the voters booklet. We start printing that tomorrow. We have the motions. We will have the motions back tomorrow from council. So we'll have those plugged in and we will hit print. We did get a lot of feedback about there not being page numbers on the warrant, but there will be page numbers for the voters booklet. Because of the way the structure was and the formatting of the document for the warrant, we couldn't get that to go in without altering things in the track changes for the actual content of the article. So the numbers will be added in after the fact in the voters booklet, so people will be able to easily locate them, and there will be a table of contents page at the front that folks can locate whatever article they need to. So we are ready again with the layout. DPW will have everything set up for us, ready to go. Similar to what we did the last time there was the special meeting for zoning matters. We'll have the same setup, including planning board, seating for planning board, seating for zoning board, the building inspector towards the front of the room, so that we are ready and prepared for them to be there should there be questions that come up throughout. And that covers the specific items right now. I defer to the board for any other general items.
Any updates from the board?
Me.
I have one real quick. Gloucester 400's reached out to us for a land acknowledgement on Sunday. Mayor Verga's office has reached out to me asking if we would like to read the whole land acknowledgement that they have planned out. It's just an acknowledgement of land. I don't know if I can make the meeting because it's on, the event because it's on Sunday. I don't know if anyone else from the board would like to attend the meeting, the event, and potentially I'll get you in touch with the mayor's office. Selectman Loya?
I'm willing to go. Yes.
All right. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah, thanks,
All
Herman.
righty. Yeah.
Thank you, Herm.
I'll reach out after the meeting, Herman, and get you in touch with
Okay.
the mayor's office. Any other updates? Selectwoman Wilkinson?
Yeah, I just have a couple. I went to the last school committee meeting. They are getting going on budgeting and obviously new superintendent. And I know the superintendent is already closely working with the town administrator and the school committee and getting going. And I think it's all gonna be good. I think he's really on top of the process. Would you say, Mitch?
Yes, I think you'll see his stamp on things moving forward.
Yeah, which is gonna be great. I also attended last night's Board of Health meeting. A few notable, actually one notable item is that they had I know this is important to all residents, they had the management of Cumberland Farms in, and I share this because I know how many of us go to Cumberland Farms because I see people when I buy my trash bags there. And frankly, if you've been to Cumberland Farms in the last month or so, you've probably noticed that it's absolutely disgusting and the smell is like horrific. So our health inspector has been really on top of it. He called in the leadership. They sent in two managers, like higher level managers, one who is brand new to the organization. Hopefully he's still around after he attended last night's meeting. They were very thoughtful and expressed that they found some type of leak. They didn't go into details. They claim they fixed it. We asked for them to have the store professionally deep cleaned. And we know how important of a community resource it is. And frankly, that it needs to be a safe, clean space for employees. Oh, Ruth George is here as well, so she can add something. But I think it's important to share that the health inspector had received multiple complaints about the building. And I think it's important for residents really to share and to reach out to one of us, reach out to the Board of Health when there are complaints about businesses, because it's really important that Rockport be served with businesses like Cumberland Farms, but they have to be clean and safe. The other, second issue that they took up is the Board of Health taking on kind of dealing with the MBTA and the train idling issue. Ruth, do you want to give a 30-second on that? Or do you want me to? Can we go to Ruth for us?
Yep. Ruth.
Yeah, so we're the I think it's called Rockport One or something, a group of citizens, a large group has come to the Board of Health and asked for our help, that it is a health and safety concern. And so we're going to try to go that route. Our chair, Dr. Newman, has been in touch with the EPA, the DEP, a lot of big area groups, and we're processing through that. It's going to be a long haul, but it will be, we want to have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen to talk about going forward and things, but it's very positive. It started out a little contentious, but now it's very positive, and they appreciate all that Dr. Newman is doing and people he's talking to, and keeping the communication open and trying to problem solve it. So
Yeah, and I explained that the selectmen that we are of course happy to partner with them on this. And, moving forward, and that we are happy to kind of loop in Senator Tar and Representative Ferrante as needed going forward. So working on that. And then just one other update. There was a few people have asked on Facebook and elsewhere about why our property taxes are billed just twice a year instead of quarterly, like most other cities and towns. So I've talked to Mitch a little bit about it, and I think it makes sense at this point to either ask Liz Dukes or the Board of Assessors at some point to come in so we can kind of ask them some questions. And it may be at this point, I know it's been decades, but it may be worth at least exploring what would be entailed, and like if there would be a benefit to us switching to quarterly tax collection. Mitch, do you have anything to add to that?
I think you covered it. It's probably worth taking a look at. There are only 5 or 6 in the entire state that still do it the way we do it. Certainly worth looking at. The amount's still the same, but that large amount do it once, especially around the holidays, would be broken up. And certainly I think probably worth us taking a closer look at.
Yeah, I do property management work, and every property that I manage is quarterly. And I see Dwight Valentine here as well. Dwight, we'll make sure that when they come in that we give you a heads up in terms of finance committee, because obviously this could have, it could have big repercussions, and maybe it would be better to switch to. I think we need to learn about it.
I think one of the things that I'll certainly have a conversation with the finance officers the next time that there's a meeting. One of the things that it certainly could be helpful with, again, I have to speak with the treasurer, is cash flow. I know that's always something that as we start to look at, December, depending on how things go, cash flow is always an item to be monitoring. So could be some additional benefits there for quarterly besides the positive impact it likely have on many residents.
Yeah.
So we'll certainly start to look at that.
Great, thanks. I think that's all the updates I have. Thanks, Russ.
Anyone else on the board?
Mr. Chair, just one other general reminder. There is a COVID clinic this Saturday at the community house. In addition to COVID vaccines, they will also have flu shots available. So first time that's happened. That's a nice add moving forward. And people can register online, but they are also welcome to just walk in. They can walk in for COVID shots. They can walk in for flu shots. So you just check in at the desk when you get to the community house, and they'll get whoever it is set up. So 9 to 11 community house, COVID shots and flu shots this Saturday.
Thank you. I'm sure you'll see Ruth there. Is that right, Ruth? All right. Any other? I didn't see any. So we'll move on to public comments again. I did want to say if anyone from the garden club still here, if you want to bring your questions up, if you had some questions about the email that Stepwoman Wilkinson sent, I mean, all the board members are here, so we can hopefully address it if possible. But just to keep it within all the board members. I know some different members have been reaching out to different members of the board, so some of the answers can get intertwined with each other. So with that, I'll open up to Toby.
I'm not,
There you
thank
go,
you.
Toby.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I was puzzled by Jason Shaw's presentation. He's saying that all of these zoning changes are necessary and that we are going to get affordable housing. But the stipulations on the zoning changes don't involve affordable housing. And that was true of both the train station zoning, the instant slum at the train station, they call it the transportation oriented overlay district, and the chicken coop apartments that they call the additional dwelling units. All of that is market rate. So when you're told of, people need affordable housing, there's something missing. It's plain dishonest. Also dishonest is the statement that we need to make these changes, and then the statement along with it that developers may or may not come forward. And that is certainly true, but it's always a possibility that people will come forward. And I think that Herman Lilya's concerns about those who grow up here but can't afford to live here are right on target. But the sad and ugly truth is that the economic trends are much larger and more powerful than any number of planning boards or boards of selectmen, and nothing that we do here is going to alter real estate prices, which are what drive it all. If you want to change things, you might possibly look to the state. The state is busy promoting housing, not affordable housing. They're greasing the skids for developers, and what you're in danger of ending up with is something like downtown Beverly or downtown Salem. And missing from all of these productions, the planning board's productions, was any coordination with other town departments, that is your board, the selectmen, and the DPW commissioners. And when Jason says, that sewer and water are not a concern, that's absurd. If such things are built, the town is obligated to provide the sewer and water services. And the DPW was saying at their meeting this afternoon that they're hard pressed on both and are considering putting a moratorium on sewer connections. So before any such meeting, as the May meeting on the zoning, and before this meeting, and it's now too late, you all need to sit down and hear what the different boards and departments have to say, because you authorize the zoning. It may or may not happen, the developments, but once it happens, you're stuck with providing the services. And the state, so eager to promote all of this, the honorables, Tar and Ferranti, won't be rushing over here with checks for tens of millions of dollars to fix the water, sewer, and sewer systems, when we're cornered and have to pay for a new sewage treatment system. You might consider all of that. Might have considered it before you approved Jason's articles. A disaster in the making. Thank you.
Thank you,
If I
Toby.
may,
Selectman Donnelly? Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of basic economic principles, the state took action by passing the housing choice law as a statewide measure in order to increase the number of housing units available. It's basic supply and demand. One of the reasons that housing prices are so high is that there are not enough housing units in the state. And as Jason was pointing out, the point is to increase the number of housing units. The goal is to drive the price down statewide by increasing the number of housing units. Also, I just want to make the point that I was on the planning board when we were working on the zoning changes that passed at the last town meeting, and we did indeed coordinate with the DPW. I just wanted to make those points. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Lilya?
Yeah, I want to comment on Toby's comments with regard to sewer in particular. Gloucester is in the process now of putting in perhaps an entirely new sewage treatment facility. That is a system that we could join with. We could add to our capacity and take away the problem, at least with regard to sewer, if we were so motivated. There's a certain amount of hesitancy. Some people say that land that currently cannot be developed would be developable, and that's not to their liking. But if we want to take care of our future with regard to the sewage treatment facility in Rockport and enable some expansion of housing in Rockport at all levels, then we could join actively with Gloucester. And it isn't that I bring it up, they bring it up, Senator Tara brings it up, Representative Ferranti brings it up. It isn't as if we aren't talking about it. It's just that we are not sitting around the same table at the current time. But there is motivation and there is encouragement to do that, to relieve our problem.
Thank you. All right, BA, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, it's Beth Renner, 49 Granite Street. I was born without tact, so I apologize for if I offend anyone, but I really want to know desperately, the Garden Club would like to meet at the community house on Mondays in the middle of the day, 5 or 6 times a year. Most of our members are well over 60 years of age. And if they're like me, I don't like to drive at night. It's just, I'm sorry, it's my age and I don't like it. And the people that come and speak to us want to come and speak to us during the day, and they don't want to come on Friday in the middle of the day and then try to get home from Rockport. Please, please, will you not let us in the building?
Beth, this was addressed at the beginning of the meeting by the president of the Garden Club. The selectmen provided them some information today about that, so you should check with the board of directors.
So you.
All right, next up is iPad, name and address for the record.
Lois Musio, 7 Norman Stone Drive. Now that the community house has been offered for the Garden Club to use on Tuesdays for our monthly meetings, we're concerned that the decision would only apply to us. We believe that the areas defined in the original renovation plans and supported by grants and loans signify the appropriate use of the building. It was not the intention of the planners and those who voted for the renovation to provide space and time. I'm sorry. It was the intention of the planners and those who voted for the renovation to provide space and time for both community organizations and the Council on Aging. We also want to encourage a process for future programmatic change that would consult with and inform the building's users rather than announcing change without consultation. It's difficult to plan for and manage a large organization when information about future access is indefinite. That's
Thank
it.
you. I'll turn it over to Selectwoman Wilkinson.
Let's go. Let's just do another comment or two and then
All right.
then I'm happy to comment. Let's just listen to a few more
All right.
comments. Thanks.
Monica? There you go.
Thank you. I wasn't commenting on the community house at this time. I think the Garden Club members have spoken well on that. I just wanted to say I was very pleased to hear you offer to begin to look into the idea of quarterly real estate tax payments. That's something I had a brief conversation with Mitch Vieira recently on it and was going to bring it up myself as something that I think the town should consider. So I just wanted to let you know, I personally am very supportive of that and hope that we'll be able to see that through to a successful implementation, or at least a successful consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane?
I think I may have missed something, but has there been any movement on the ARPA funds on getting community input on how those are going to be spent? I saw it on the agenda, but I didn't hear it addressed.
Mitch, you want to comment on that real quick?
Sure. So I think it's very likely that the board will start to look at that right after the special town meeting.
Thank you.
And then Sherry?
It wasn't letting me raise my hand electronically. I really don't want to discuss the letter tonight.
1 second, Sherry, can you just name and address for the record, please?
I'm sorry, Sherry Casey, 10 Dean Road. We don't feel it's in everyone's best interest to discuss the letter online in the meeting. If you'd like us to meet with more than just Sarah, we'd be glad to do that. But there's quite a few items that should be discussed in detail. And because there's a lot of misunderstanding on both sides. So we would still like to meet with someone in person or on a Zoom meeting, either way.
All right.
Just to get this clarified, so that we don't continue in what has been kind of an adversarial way. We would like to have everyone get along, and we'd like to be able to come to you in a friendly, nice manner, and we'd like to feel that you respond to us that way too. So that's why we would like to meet in person, or at least to address the letter.
Yeah.
All righty. Selectwoman Wilkinson?
That's fine, except the issue we're having is there is as I stated in the letter, there is so much misinformation being shared by members of the Garden Club that we are being inundated. And when I say inundated, in person, at events, phone calls, emails, paper letters, we are all literally being attacked. And most of it is misinformation, which is why I replied today and I copied everyone. And to be honest, it all needs to be discussed, except for anything that, could have a legal repercussion, obviously, in a meeting with the board, because, Sherry, Ross and I took 2 hours and met with you guys in August. And then I hear that you called Selectman Lilia yesterday. Like, it needs to end, because frankly, we're all too busy trying to keep this town a great place to continue. If I tell you I can't go to the supermarket without someone either saying to me, when are you going to let the Garden Club back into the community house? Or, oh my God, does the Garden Club, is all they care about the community house? It's coming at us from all angles. And frankly, I need it to stop, because we have other things going on. And then Lois just went off for 5 minutes about a public process. Our goal is for the public to use the community house. Everything we've done tonight, it has that goal in mind. So I'm happy to meet, but to be honest, it needs to be with the Board of Selectmen, because at this point, it just won't end. It just won't end. I don't know if others disagree with me, but and frankly, this is the only way that we can talk to each other about this. I know the whole board got my email today, but I've heard from other selectmen that they're deeply frustrated as well.
Agreed.
I agree.
All righty. All right, seeing Liz.
Yes, Liz Fregola, 13 Phillips Avenue. I understand, I think, some of what you're saying, Sarah, but we can't really resolve this unless there's dialogue. And I think it's very important that we do meet and that we do try to understand each other's viewpoints and try to have some respect. I don't want to raise a particular issue that's been very troublesome to us in Garden Club and to our specific members. So I don't want to raise this now. If you want it raised now, it can be, but I really think a discussion face-to-face or on Zoom would be most appropriate. And if you could give us 15 minutes perhaps a lot of what you're talking about can be put to rest. I'm sorry that you feel harassed, but people do have a right to ask you questions as a select person for a town, and we are voters.
Thank
Well,
you, Liz.
Thank you.
I will just say that this is another example right here. We have Lewis, who has a totally different mindset. So who is the dialogue supposed to be with?
We're here.
You know, that's what I'm trying to say. You know, we've sat down with 3 members of the committee, and then we go home, and then there's 4 different members online bashing us for something we just settled with 3 members. So I'm not sure who the dialogue should go with. I'm sure you may be referring to one of my more harsh emails that I sent to one of the members after we spoke with one of your members talking about Fridays that would work, and then she said she'll pass it on to the board. She copied the selectmen on the email, showed us that she sent it to the board, and then we get an email from the board of directors. I don't know if that's what you call yourselves on the garden club, asking for a totally different day after we just discussed it with one of the other members. So I'll reach out to Sherry after this meeting, see if we can get more dialogue started, and I'll try to focus on Sherry and some of the main leadership she has, that she can tell me who's the main leadership is, and we can try to start there and continue where we've been. Second, Lilia.
I'm curious about the position of the garden club. They don't like the days and hours that have been proposed. I'm not sure exactly why, other than it isn't what they initially asked for. But then come back to us. We're telling you that what you want is not convenient for the operation of the community house. Therefore, come back with something that in fact you think is the better option for, well, yourselves, other than what has been proposed. And whether or not that can actually be fitted into the weekly operation is up to the board. The board has to make a decision.
I think at this point they haven't discussed the Tuesday option yet.
That's the problem.
It's fine, but they're saying that there are other issues, but I'm saying that I'm just frustrated with, I have worked for months and months to try to resolve all of their issues, and every day there's something new on Facebook or in the Gloucester Times, and frankly, like, the time to discuss an issue is in a selectmen's meeting when the 5 Board of Selectmen can hear it, because, this is us, and
And to what they said, that it is correct. You can reach out to us, and we are the public officials that were elected, so you can ask us and talk to us however you want. But when we get misinformation of like, oh, you didn't let the garden club use the facility, and then I'm like, well, me and Sarah just got out of a meeting that allowed them to use it for the last 3 months of their meetings on Fridays. We settled on something, but then we still got inundated with, why aren't you letting him use it?
Yeah.
So this is the dialogue that we're talking about, and I'm sorry I'm taking it up in public comment, because I really don't want to do that here. So with that, if there's any other public comment, if not, the board does have to get into executive session tonight.
I just want to thank the 2 selectmen that has spent a tremendous amount of time on this issue, and the garden club. And I think we do have to move on and meet with the board collectively with the Board of Selectmen to get this resolved. It shouldn't be that difficult in terms of getting this a day and so forth. But again, thank you to Ross and Sarah for meeting with them, and I'm sure cooler heads will prevail down the road.
Thank you, Selectman Murphy. And next up is Michaela.
24 Beach.
Hi, Michaela Tobin, 24 Beach Street. And I was the treasurer in 2022 for our Rockport Garden Club. I am no longer the treasurer, so I am speaking as a member of our club. And I appreciate all of the efforts that both our board, our GC board, and our select board, has made to make this work. But what I really have had a problem with is the online adversary tone. Rather than having it go back and forth in that vein of, you said this, you did this, what I would rather have seen is a dialogue between closed doors, between the RGC board and any one select person. It really saddens me that I have to read all these affronts. And the last letter by Selectwoman Wilkinson was totally adversary, and it was hearsay. If you're going to publish something to that, to that respect, then truly we should either have actual names, or perhaps just not even say anything, not even email anything, just contact one of the board members and say, look, we're being inundated with this. It's really a problem for the select board. And can we talk about it? So just from a citizen's, point of view, now as a member of my beloved RGC, I would like to see a little bit more civility. I'm really hurt by what I've been reading and what I've seen my colleagues go through. So that is all I have to say.
And just so as the citizens know, we have been reaching out and we have met with different members in person behind closed doors, if that's how you want to use it, and spoke to them. And then again, we see them email the rest of the members, and then we get a response back completely opposite of what we discussed with that one member. So again, I said I'll reach out to Sherry after this meeting and see if we can get some dialogue going, and then we'll start from there again. And then I'm not taking second comments. I'm not sure, Dawn, if you already spoke this session. I'm not taking another one.
Ross, can I just add something?
Yep.
And frankly, this is very similar to what happened with Long Beach earlier. Michaela, I'm not sure that maybe the leadership of the Garden Club didn't share, but Ross and I met in person with three heads of the Garden Club for 2 hours in August when we worked out the fall Friday schedule and several other issues. And then after that, we worked out other issues such as using the kitchen and other items. And it was after the August in-person meeting that we agreed to all of this, that the online stuff happened. I haven't put anything adversarial online. My email today was as an elected official, and that my duty is to the residents of this town, and not to one specific group, which is frankly what Ross and I had to explain to the leadership of the Garden Club in August, was that our duty is to all residents. No group can be treated differently than any other group. I understand that there's deep frustration over that because of the Garden Club's history with the community house. I truly do, but we were able to share with them some examples of where we've been reached out to, and people have accused us of giving the Garden Club preferential treatment over other town groups. And frankly, we were elected to treat all residents in town the same. And both Ross and I explained that. And then it's since August, frankly, that's been most frustrating to us, that the letters to the Gloucester Times and things on Facebook, and we haven't tried to start anything. All I want to do is have people use the community house, frankly. But it's just, the back and forth and miscommunication. I'm happy with Ross to join and meeting, but I think we need to find a way to reach the broader Rockport Garden Club, because I had over an hour talk with Peggy Coonley yesterday, and she didn't even, she didn't know a lot of what had gone on. So I'm happy to meet again, but we're going to share what is shared with a larger audience, because that's our job. Thanks.
Thank you.
One last thing, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think that because you folks have been working hard to resolve the situation, and we're still at dead center. I think if we could put it at a selectmen's meeting where the 5 of us are here, and we'll make some decisions there, that would be my suggestion.
Alrighty, thank you. And then last public comment will be Don Poole. One second, let's get you unmuted there, Don. All right, there you
Okay,
go.
thank you. Don Poole, 7 Ladder Farm Circle, Rockport. I just want to make a quick mention in the qualifications for the new board member for the fire engineers. I know that Chief Keating is currently doing most of the fire inspections. And I just want to make sure that becomes one of the big things, because the other 2 board members work 40 hours a week and they may not be able to do daytime inspections for public public fire prevention, with restaurants and all that. So, but I just wanted to mention that in talking to Chief Keating, there's the possibility that can be broken out from the board. So I just want you guys to think about that as well when you look at all the candidates.
Thank you. I've spoken with both the 2 remaining engineers, and we're under complete understanding that they can handle it if needed. So with that, I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move that the board enter into executive session for the following purpose. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A(3), to discuss strategy with respect to anticipated litigation regarding Sacramento Avenue in the area of Haven Avenue, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we are entering into executive session because by not doing so, it would be detrimental to the town's negotiating position. The board will not reconvene in open session. Selectwoman Wilkinson.
Aye.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Selectman Lawyer.
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
And Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. We are in executive session.
Okay, at this time, the public portion of the Board of Selectmen's meeting has ended. We ask that you please exit the meeting at this time. The board will not reconvene in public session. We ask that you please exit the meeting at this time.